And very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Live. We're broadcasting as we almost always do from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. Now, on most people's minds is the escalating cost of living. The prices of food items is going up and up and up, and the government is trying various measures to try and control it. Some say, of course, that these are short-term measures, though we need a mixture of various matters to resolve the problem. We've got a perfect guest to talk about that, of course. But before I introduce the guest to you, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that one of our cabinet ministers, or ministers at any rate, Bandula Gunawardena, suggests that each person will be given 3 kilos of rice, which he says is enough for a family for 14 days. Well, I make the calculation that if you divide the 3 kilos, which is 3,000 grams, by 14 days, and then divide it by 3 people, bearing in mind that he said a family, so perhaps the mother, the husband, and 1 child. So let's say 3 people. And if you divide that by 3 and then divide it again by 3, because it's 3 meals per day, I'd like to show you how much of rice it comes to per meal, according to Bandula Gunawardena. Look, here it is. This bit is 24 grams of raw rice. I don't know whether you will all agree with me or not that this is actually what the minister says is enough per person per day with the 3 kilos of rice. It is beyond a joke. That's it. So here we go. I will now introduce you our guest, who will talk not about that, but about the rising cost of living, especially the cost of food items. He's right here with us. Professor from the University of Colombo. He's right here, Professor Sirimal Abeyratne. Very good evening to you,
Very
Professor.
good evening to you.
Professor, I don't want you to talk about this.
Yes.
Oh, and this is actually the amount of sugar per day, which you can manage, I suppose, because you don't want to get diabetes. But this is the rice. The professor's not talking about that. Professor, why are the prices so high? That's part one. I've got several questions, but why are the prices so high?
Correct. Yes. There are a number of reasons for that. Right now, we need to talk about global economy first. Number one. We need to talk about exchange rate. Number two. We also need to talk about the this festival seasonal effect. So when we combine all these things, we can explain why the food prices, not necessarily the inflation rate that we talk about in economics, but the food prices, why the food prices are rising right now. We have seen, now we all know that the global, there has been an economic crisis in the entire world. And in that crisis, we have seen very low inflation rate, but in the recent past we have seen the oil prices are rising, and we all know that the oil price affects all the other commodities. Number one, of course, we know that in Sri Lanka oil prices remain the same because of the government policy, but in the world market, yes,
right.
But in the world market, the oil prices have been rising. Mid last year, it has gone down actually so much, and I can't remember, maybe after 40-50 years, it has gone down to below $20 a barrel, which has been rising after that. Now it has been going above $60 a barrel also. So oil, when the oil rises, and then actually it affects all the other commodities also. We have also seen the food prices rising in the world market, sugar and grain and all these heavily traded food commodities. The prices of those commodities have been rising too. So we are very much connected to the world economy. This is not a standalone economy. Sri Lanka, this is not a Robinson Crusoe economy, although we try to make it like that, but this is a very well connected economy to the global world. So the impact of those world prices are reflected in our commodity prices also, number one. Number two, we have seen the pressure on the exchange rate. So that when the exchange rate, when you want to pay 185 rupees a dollar, what you import from other countries, now we are paying 200 rupees a dollar to the same amount of commodity that we import. So which means actually the domestic prices of those commodities are now higher. Number three, we have also seen, now we are approaching this Sinhala and Tamil New Year period, and this usually in every year we have seen the prices are rising during this festival season because of the seasonal effect, because everybody wants to buy certain commodities, oil, grain, green gram and clothing, so that essential commodities that we consume, the prices of particularly those commodities are rising.
But if you let's take rice, right? Red raw rice. The average price March 2020 was about 97 rupees and 36. This is the source of this information is the Department of Census and Statistics, and I'm merely reading it out. March 2020, the average price of raw red was 97 rupees and 36 cents. In the third week or in the fourth week of March 2021, it was 100 rupees and 11 cents, which means it's gone up. It's gone up by around 2.8%. Now then, the price range this week was between 93 and 110. Why the fluctuation then?
Well, I don't think those prices are actually, because we have to add the government subsidies also there. In spite of subsidies, and the prices are rising like this, and if there is no subsidy, the prices would be even higher than these prices.
So the problem would be even worse.
Yes, problem would be worse then. Actually, the prices now, commodity prices, price of rice, and you can say this is a local commodity, so that it's not connected to the world market, and it's not the case. But if you keep the imports also under control, right, and then provide all these subsidies also. But having said that, and if we look at the other cost of production, those things are rising. So when the cost of production rises, actually the prices of rice also rises. There may be some other supply chain problems also when the rice comes to the market, from the producer to the market. There may be other issues also, but anyway, the main issue is actually those prices are also connected to it's a network of commodity prices. So it's when other prices rises, when there are import controls, the rice prices should also rise.
Now then, Professor Sirimal, tell us, how do you, for example, where some months ago we saw on television and so on that vast amounts of vegetables were being destroyed, just chucked away, whereas some people needed them. So suggests to me that there's a problem in the distribution. So how does one fix that?
That is exactly what I mean by the supply chain issues. And when the vegetable from the producer to the consumer, when it comes along the way, and there are many distortions happening there, and sometimes today there is the market is flooded with the supply, and when tomorrow it may go in the other direction, and then the producers, the farmers cannot even sell their products. Now they have to throw it away.
Or they could put it into cold storage.
is not widely available. I don't think cold
So
stores
isn't that,
are not
isn't that
widely
again,
available.
isn't that again
Yeah.
part of the planning
Correct.
failure?
Correct. Even if the cold stores are available, I don't think all the vegetables can.
No, you can't. You can't. But
yeah.
you can prolong the delay
Yes.
by so many days.
But freezing vegetable and then
not
consuming
freezing,
it again.
Chiller.
Okay.
Just
Chilling.
chilling.
That's
Just like
only
when you
for
put
a
it in your
certain
fridge.
period of time, but you can't do it.
No, you can't keep it for 3 months or things like that, but you can keep it for 5 days, 7 days. You can do that. It's the same as you putting in your fridge, and you store it at about 18 degrees, and it'll be fine. But it's not meant to be.
I don't think it is available widely in this country.
No, it isn't, but that's my point.
Yeah.
That is again clearly a failure on the part of our favorite topic, government, to address this issue. Either that, or they need to open it up completely to the private sector so that the private sector can get on with it and do it. But the minute the private sector does it and the government identifies that somebody is having a nice little earner, bang comes the tax man and they'll raise the taxes and then everything will go down the drain.
Yeah.
So what is the economic battle? How does one fuel this economic battle to bring the prices down?
Production side, you cannot bring the prices down having this kind of complicated supply chain management issue in the country.
Right.
And the farmers are small scale farmers, most of them, and so that the productivity is low, and so that they are not strong enough in their bargaining power, and because of that there is a long list of middle interferences which multiply the prices, and then the consumer ultimately is also another affected person. So the producer and the consumer both are affected by this kind of distorted supply chain management. And if we are going to sort out that issue, and that actually should be done, but which is actually a very fundamental problem, because we have to move away from our small scale production, and our farmers should be the large scale producer.
So we need to go for large scale farming,
commercial farming, which means actually you can't do that because we have about more than 2 million people stuck in the agriculture sector. Unless and yes, there are books there, unless and until we take them away from that sector, providing new jobs in industry and service sectors, we can't go there also. There are also some other regulatory problems preventing that kind of movement. So that is
your estimation, Professor, let's take a kilo of rice that's finally in the shop.
Yes.
Okay? Whether it's a village shop or a supermarket or wherever, but it's in the shop. What would you say is the energy component of the cost of that? The oil price, let's say, the transport, and all that. That's all linked to the oil price. So what would you say is the component?
It adds up to the price of that rice, not only from the transport cost, but also from other costs, the vehicle cost and the labor cost and utility cost, and with all these things, electricity cost, with all these things, the prices should go up now when the oil prices are rising in the world market.
But not every fluctuation is to be blamed on the oil price.
Not every fluctuation, because as I mentioned, there are many other fluctuations. Even people can manipulate it in different environments, right? They can manipulate the prices, and sometimes the vegetable prices, rice prices.
So there's manipulation as well.
Yeah, rice. We see on the newspapers and on media, these prices have been manipulated in certain times. That is also another issue.
On that note, let's go for a short break and take a little peek at the headlines for the primetime news this evening. Don't go away. We'll be back on the other side of this short break. And welcome back to Newsline Live. We're talking about the rising cost of living and especially the food costs. And we are, of course, in conversation with Professor Sirimal Abeyratne. And now then, Professor, what is the short-term fix that will work to drive these prices down? Because the public aren't earning enough money.
Yes, it's good that you mentioned short-term, because there are medium-term as well as long-term solutions.
Yeah, but what's the short-term fix?
Short-term thing, I think the government is doing those things. Any government is taking steps to sort out these kind of problems in the short run, because it's a politically sensitive issue too. One thing is that imports are affecting. So when the oil prices go up, when the world market prices go up, sugar prices, oil prices, even the edible oil prices, so then we have to liberalize imports, and we know that imports are under control right now because of another problem, and that is one thing. And then another thing would be to reduce the taxes on those things, and another issue would be to
but they tried reducing the taxes on sugar and it didn't work.
Yeah, they have to do that, and
but it didn't work.
Okay, well, I don't say that everything is going to work, and they sometimes something.
The sugar, they remove 50 rupees.
Certain things work and certain things don't work, and certain things are done for different purposes, and so all these complications are there too. But addressing the issues directly, now reducing, targeting the prices to go down. So
at least the essential items, like the rice and the dal and the
correct. So essential items would be available at cheaper prices or lower prices. So the governments are doing those kind of things in the short run. So that's what we do. And if there is a shortage of commodities, and government may try to bring down those food items and then make it available in the local market, so that the prices should definitely go down. If it is a problem of supply, local supply, then actually imports would be a better option. So all these things are short-term policy measures, but this is not going to solve the problem for the next month.
But Professor, you know, this show is probably watched by the urban people and so on, but our sister channel Sirsa it will have 100 times more viewers than this program.
Correct.
Because of course it's in the vernacular, it's in Sinhalese. How can you explain to the public, to the republic out there, that the government is doing all they can when they don't believe it? Because they don't believe it because they don't have enough money in the pocket. We have jokers who say that 3 kilos of rice is enough for two weeks for one family. And I showed this at the beginning of the program. You know, if you want to know, I'll do it all over again if you like. You know, I'll show you what it meant. Look, this is how much Bandula Gunawardena says is enough for one person for one meal. 24 grams of rice. And it has been weighed with a machine from a reputable food store, which I presume has the license for the weighing scale. I've got it right. It's 24 grams a day per meal. It's crazy. Well, that's what some ministers say. But honestly, the people out there, Professor, they're going nuts. They don't know what to do. People are committing suicide.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's the real short-term solution?
No short-term solution for that question. That's exactly the question that we need to answer from our medium-term and long-term, looking at those solutions. And because we haven't done this in the past, and today we are having the problem, and if we don't do these things today, and tomorrow or in the future we will have the same problem again and again and again. So that is where we need to focus on now. I know that in Sri Lanka, compared to the income level of people, we know that income levels have gone down because of the current pandemic issue as well.
Well,
but
yes and
income
no.
level, compared to our income levels, our prices are quite high.
Quite high?
High.
Yes, of course they are.
That has been a fundamental problem of this economy. So how do we sort out this problem? Not by reducing prices. Of course, you can reduce the prices. You make it more competitive, right? The market is more competitive so that nobody can manipulate the market. And when the market is competitive, the prices are obviously reflecting what is there, what should be there. But you need to raise that income level, and for that you can't do overnight. You need medium term and long term solutions.
But when you're giving subsidies, the short term, if you give subsidies to make it cheaper so that the average man can buy, the government departments don't seem to work because they tried that with the sugar, and the 85 rupee sugar was sold at 102 plus. I don't want to go into that whole thing.
Yeah.
But instead, we have private companies who operate supermarkets and stores and distribution. They have their own distribution networks and so on. So they can get it right. Why do you think that there is this inherent paranoia about involving the private sector when they know what they're doing?
Yes.
Our group has a network of distribution. We've done it for the last 40 years. We know what we're doing when it comes to distributing our product. So similarly, there are other companies, and the government is just looking up and trying to sort of play ball.
Yes, I think so. When we don't take the right steps to increase the income level of the people,
Yeah.
that is the fundamental requirement to face these prices. And then when we don't improve the competitive markets here, then obviously you have the same problem over and over.
Indeed, but do you think it'll ever make a difference when we talk and discuss these things? Do you think somebody somewhere is listening?
Yeah. Now, to make a difference to our income levels,
Yeah.
what we are talking about, there should be investment, there should be exports, and our monetary policy, fiscal policy should work for those things. I think these are standard economic the talks. Now, if we don't address that question, and if we don't take measures, and probably it is not the government, but even the people are sometimes opposing these things. So what we oppose, and we get the results for the same thing.
We need to use our vote much more wisely then.
Correct. Yeah.
And what of the measures to increase production? That's a longer term solution. What about
I
that?
will, before longer term, I like to talk about the medium term problem also.
Right.
Medium term thing, actually now the world economy is on the recovery path.
Okay.
Recovery path means last year we had the bad economy, and the world economy is now on rise, and including Sri Lankan economy. So we should actually expect higher prices when there is an economic expansion.
Right.
So that means within the next couple of years we should expect higher prices, higher inflation. That is, we can't avoid it. But we can avoid it by focusing on that long-term thing. What is the long-term thing? We need more and more investment. We need to create jobs. We need to create incomes, income generating economic activities. And it is not the government that can solve this problem. Government can't solve this problem by providing subsidies. Where do those subsidies come from? It comes from tax money. And where does tax come from? Tax comes from economic activity.
Exactly. So the government doesn't doesn't have any business being in business.
Yeah, exactly.
They should leave it to the people who know how to make it. That means they'll have to change their entire ideology. But long term, how do you think that that the government have encouraged people to increase production in terms of agriculture and so on? Do you think that's going to work in a year's time if you come back here?
I will have to talk about the same thing.
So you don't think it will make it?
Well, there are attempts, I know that.
Yeah.
There have
Are they
been
half-baked attempts or are they
Yes.
real good attempts?
Attempts have to be actually genuine attempts. Now, if we are going to make compromise, okay, there are a lot of compromises here and there everywhere, and then among those compromises, we are also going to try something good, and which means actually it is not going to work. There should be a genuine attempt covering every area of the economy, every area of concern. And if people don't believe in those things, that means because there are compromises in other places, but then there will be enough investment coming to this land. When the investment comes, there will be more business, there will be more jobs, there will be rising incomes for people, agriculture people in the agriculture sector, fishery sector, they will come out and they will take up jobs in industry and service sectors. So that's how we have to solve this problem in the long run.
Well, I look forward to that utopian time here in Sri Lanka. But Professor Sirimal Abeyratne, thank you very much for being on Newsline. And now it's time for the primetime news from News First. Take care, great evening ahead of you, and as always, God bless you.